Hello, welcome to Regular Achiever Educational Limited, presenting Royal Tutors, your trusted support for brain-friendly, high-impact learning. Today we'll be looking at GCSE English Language Paper 1, Question 3. 8 marks, requires you 10 minutes, and is on structure analysis. Understanding the question before it was rewarded. The question was, how does the writer structure the text to interest you as a reader? But now it is focused on a specific effect, and it is, how does the writer structure the text to create tension or any other effect? Common mistakes to avoid. Talking about language instead of structure, just retelling the story, ignoring shifts in focus and paragraph length. What the examiner is testing for, your ability to notice how the order and shape of events affects the reader. Now we're going into the extract. This extract is taken from a novel titled The Journey Home by R. Blackwood. The sun had barely risen when Elsie stepped out of the cottage, her boots clutching the frost-beaten leaves that littered the path. The world was silent, cloaked in a mist that blurred the trees and hedgerows, giving everything a dreamlike quality. She clutched her suitcase tightly. This was no ordinary walk. It was a farewell to the only home she had ever known. She paused at the gate, glancing back at the ivy-covered wall. The window to her room was still ajar. A wisp of curtain moved faintly as if waving goodbye. For a moment, she thought of running back inside, but the low call of the station bell echoed faintly across the valley. She took a deep breath and stepped out into the lane. The road twisted through field that has been in her family for generations. Elsie remembered chasing her brother down the same track, their laughter carried by the wind. Now the same air was still and cold, the silence broke only by the occasional call of a distant crow. With every step she took, her heart seemed to grow heavier. A mile on, the mist began to thin. The cell hotet of the village came into view. Small houses was pale, smoke coiling from chimney. The spire of the church standing tall against the dull winter sky. The cobbled street felt unfamiliar in its quietness. Normally bustling with chatters, it seemed hushed, as though the place itself knew she was leaving. Elsie reached the station earlier than expected. The platform was empty except for an elderly porter polishing a lantern. He tipped his hat politely but said nothing. She brought her ticket, the paper crisp and cold in her gloved hands. Her fingers lingered on it, such a small slip of paper to decide so much. A whistle sounded in distance. A plume of steam appeared beyond the bend. And soon the train whirled into sight, wheels hissing against the track. Elsie's heart tightened. She stepped abroad, settling by the window, the suitcase on her lap. As the train pulled away, she watched the field and cottage roll past. Shrinking into the mist, her throat ached, but she refused to cry. The journey was long. Grey sky turned to dusk as the train carried her further from home. Trees gave way to the outline of a town, then to rows of houses stacked tightly together. Elsie pressed her forehead to the glass, her breath clouded the window. This was where her life or her new life would begin. At last, the train slowed and stopped. The station was crowded, voices echoing under the high roof. Elsie stepped down, clutching her suitcase. For a moment, she hesitated, unsure which way to go. Then, from the crowd, a familiar voice called her name. She turned to see her aunt hurrying forward, her face alight with welcome. Relief flooded Elsie's chest. Together they walked from the station. The noise of the crowd faded behind them. Ahead, the street glowed faintly in the lamplight. Elsie looked back only once. The mist had stayed behind with the fields and the cottage. Her path was clear now. Okay, now tips for grade 7 to 9. For grade 7 to 9. Now you're going to mention shift in focus, zoom in or out, time changes. Now analyze repetition, sentence strength, foreshadowing, and use pretzel structure for analysis or any other structure that can get you a grade 7 to 9 and that answers or that correspond with the mark scheme. Now, for my analysis of source A, and this is a question, how does the writer structure the text to create a sense of nostalgia? Extract from The Journey Home by R. Blackwood. Now I'm going to give a free paragraph. Now for the point, the writer deliberately paces the opening and early middle of the extract so that the reader lingers on place and memory, which builds a sustained sense of nostalgia. Now for the reference, which is R. This was no ordinary walk. It was a farewell to the only home she had ever known. The techniques used is the use of the dash for analysis. The declarative sentence frames the act as a ritual, and the immediate insertion of a memory flashback in the next line as structural choices. Now for the explanation of the reference, the dash interrupts the flow and forces the reader to pause on the way or the word farewell. Now, as zoom in is on farewell, the placement highlights it as the hinge between present action and past emotion. Now, for the link, we're linking back to the point. Therefore, the pacing and interruption of narrative time creates a strong nostalgic atmosphere. Now, what we did, we zoomed out, a wide landscape description as a wistful cinematic scene, and we did a flashback, and then we did repetition. Now for paragraph 2, the writer then used abrupt consecrated moments and short forceful phrases to heighten emotional intimacy at key points. Now for reference, which is the quote, her throat ached, but she refused to cry. Now, this is a short sentence, a short controlled sentence, clause, and contrast with the earlier long descriptive passage, juxtaposition between physical sensation and emotional restraint to use structurally. Now for the analysis of the E, then the sudden concentration or the concentration centered the reader on Elsie's private feeling. Now we zoomed in into refuse, and it is showed choice rather than passive sorrow. Now linking back to the point, contrasting structure layer the nostalgic experience. All right, now this is my paragraph 3. You could also read through, pause and read through and create your own paragraph 3 from the extract. With this, we have come to the end of question 3 analysis, paper 1. See you soon. Bye.